Welcome to another Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. I'm Dave Rattigan, across from Dale Lawrence, and today we're going to talk about, the center of entertainment and depravity and vice in this country. And no, I'm not talking about Lynn, Massachusetts. I'm talking about Hollywood. Before we go too far, I want to remind everybody that we're at InsideTheLine.org, or you can send us an email at realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. And please share us, because we love you listeners, but we want more of you. So this has been an interesting week for this. Perfect week to bring this up.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of Hollywood types, elitists, persons of privilege are kind of getting the benefit of the doubt, and they're not getting locked up.
And it's you're right. And there's nothing new about that. I mean, it's if you're Will Smith, you can slap somebody.
Oh, yeah.
You can assault somebody, and the cops will pull you. The cops will arrest you, as they offered to. Or you can just stay for the rest of the ceremony, accept your Academy Award, and just walk away, basically scot-free. I always wonder with this is, obviously, people who are privileged, it's a double-edged sword. If you're a person of privilege, if you're a celebrity, if you're wealthy, you can afford the best attorneys. You're afforded, let's call it the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
And but on the other hand, you're also a target for crazies and for people who want you to have
my baby, Dave.
They want you to have your baby. That's what I'm going to say. I was trying to get it. I think I said they want you to have your baby, but they want to have your baby. If you were famous, now that you're famous, now you've got a podcast.
Oh, very famous. I can't even walk out of the house without girls throwing their underwear at me and phone numbers.
By girls. How old are these girls?
Hopefully
64, 64,
hopefully
70.
Between 18 and 70.
I think that is your demographic. So in some of the instances here, we're going to talk about basically instances in which a person of privilege, celebrity, not always from Hollywood, is given a break by a cop. And in some instances, we will be giving out names, and some people we won't, right?
Because a lot of times when you deal with anyone, you give a break, from the average citizen to a politician to the mayor to anyone in a town where a small cop works. If you give them a break, say for, drunk driving, getting into an argument or something like that, you typically are not going to write it in a report. It's just going to, like, it never happened. There's no record of it.
Why would it?
Well, why would it, Dave? Yeah, so that's what you see in instances where there was a report taken and where either the person might have been arrested or it was on TV. We're going to give the name, but there's a couple of instances where I can't give the name based on the information that I have and based on how it was handled.
Plus, we don't want to be rotten.
Yeah, plus we don't want to get sued.
Rotten. We don't want to be, well, yeah.
We probably have $1,000 invested in this podcast. And so I wouldn't want them to take our 4 mics, our 4 headphones, and our little podcast module.
Oh, they could take more than that. They could take your dining room table.
Oh, yeah.
They could take this fine tablecloth. They could, there's all kinds of things. They could take your hand embroidery.
Oh, yeah, you like that stuff, don't you?
Yeah. World's greatest, and you misspelled dad, but world's greatest dead. Up there on the.
There you go.
Anyway, let's talk about these. Would you like to be famous?
Would I like to be famous?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad thing, but I think after a while you'd probably be annoyed with it. Just because when I go to all your comedy shows as your security guard, there's so many people looking for autographs, Dave, and advice. Young comics looking to get on the bill.
Here's what I figured out: nobody wants nobody wants to be my friend for that. They just want something from me.
Yeah.
Just like if I was a celeb. Well, I remembered I did a show with the Beach Boys, and John Stamos came in, and John Stamos was a really nice guy. Couldn't leave the dressing room. Couldn't leave the dressing room because he'd get mobbed. But of course, the thing is, couldn't leave the dressing room, or he might have a beautiful woman throw herself at him. So
who would want that?
Yeah,
who the hell would want that, Dave?
Definitely a double-edged sword. But he was just there to hang out with the guys, but it was really funny because he said, how'd your set go? And he goes, I'd come down to watch it, but I can't. And he's right, because they'd all be flocking around him.
Yeah, they wouldn't listen to you.
Which might be good.
Yeah.
Which might be good with some sets, but not that particular day. Anyway, let's talk about
the update from the New York City murder.
Yeah.
Just like we talked about. They caught him.
That was amazing. You called that. You said, these cops are good. They're going to pick this guy up pretty quickly. And they did. It was the handyman lover.
There you go. We talked about that. We had three scenarios. We had the husband, murder for hire. We had the young psychotic 13-year-old kid kill his mummy.
And by the way, we don't know if he's psychotic. We said the young child who might be psychotic or have an emotional problem.
And he wasn't.
Yep.
And then it was the third option, which was she's having an affair. He didn't want to, or she wanted to knock off the affair. And he was like, fuck that. If I can't have you, no one will. And he decided to bludgeon her to death with 58 to 60 stab wounds. And he took the body out of the house, wheeled it down the street, left a whole bunch of evidence. And they followed, like we talked about, they followed the local neighborhood cameras, and they were able to identify him through some cameras in the area.
Yeah, which is interesting because this is something we had talked about a couple of shows before, about the surveillance video, and the fact that now everyone's got the doorbell cam or whatever, the home security system. And obviously that's a fairly nice neighborhood, so everybody had one.
Absolutely.
And they were able to put this together. And first they followed the trail of blood back to the house. Then they knew where the murder occurred. They know the type of murder because it's, as we all know from watching television, there are two types that you get. If you get 50 to 61 stab wounds, this means it's either a really psycho who's getting sexual gratification out of it, like yourself, or maybe something that's very personal.
Yeah, domestic or a family member.
A crime of passion.
Crime of passion, Dave.
Anyway, what was the other thing about this guy? He's a...
Well, he was an illegal alien. David Bonola, 44, out of New York. He was the handyman.
And he had an on and off affair for 2 years.
Yep, with Orsolya Gaal.
And I know this. I know that being a Fox News watcher, I know that you thought to yourself, the first thing you thought when you heard of this is you said, having an on and off affair, here's another case of a foreigner coming in and taking an American job.
And then now taking an American life.
Yeah, and now taking an American life afterwards. Maybe that's not something.
Yeah, that's not even relevant in regards to whether he was illegal or illegal. I was
just making a joke.
No, I know.
Maybe it was maybe it wasn't a joke to make.
I just wanted to apologize to all the people who might not be in the country legally that listen to us. We love you, baby. Keep on listening.
We do love you. That's anyway. I apologize for my terrible joke. We got another one. Here's something in the news. Your buddy,
Mike Tyson,
your good pal.
Yep.
He assaulted a man on a flight.
Yeah,
Tell me about that one.
Well, he was on a flight. I guess he was heading to down in the Florida area, and there was a intoxicated person behind him.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, turned out to be a criminal. He was in and out of jail, assault and batteries, fraud, and everything else. And he was drunk, and he wanted, an autograph from Mike. He wanted his picture taken. He wanted to talk to him. And I think, Mike probably said, "Hey, I'll give you one." And Mike probably figured that it was all over after that, and the guy just kept harassing him. And who's the last person you would ever fuck with in this world? I would think Mike Tyson would be probably top on the list.
I will say this, though. If I was drunk, maybe I would.
Yeah.
Because
want to see if you can
sure wouldn't do it. No, I just sure wouldn't do it sober.
Oh, who would? I wouldn't even do it. I wouldn't do it sober, drunk, even if I was off my meds and I was delusional.
Yeah. Well, off your meds you might, but you don't drink enough to know the stupid things people do when they're drunk. But people do stupid things when they're drunk, and I think this definitely qualified. So what happened to Mike Tyson? I'm sure. Now, there was video of him, right?
There's video of it. It's on TMZ or anywhere on the internet. Mike whacked him a few times, and he had a couple of scars on the side of his face.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, and Mike just left the flight and probably went home and, probably booked another flight to go down to Florida. This is where the privilege is. If you go back the last couple of years and you just look anywhere on the internet and you'll see the cops storming planes because there's a few people who won't wear a mask, and they'll drag them off the plane for not wearing a mask.
Oh my goodness!
People arguing.
No, well, this is no.
So if you look at this, it's the same thing.
The guy didn't press charges,
but it doesn't matter.
This is that this guy, Melvin Townsend III.
Yeah,
Melvin Townsend III did not press charges.
I don't think it matters because that's a federal offense. It was on an airline. And so you don't have to press charges.
So whose call is it to arrest him or not arrest him? Is it the airline?
Yeah, it would either be the airline or if the cops could have made a judgment call. But I think probably people were like, the guy deserved it.
Yeah.
People who were probably witnesses were like, hey, the guy deserved it.
He was harassing the guy.
And then the other element there is, if they ever sent me to arrest Mike Tyson or someone like Mike Tyson, I wouldn't be going there too quickly, brother. I'm not going to be willingly going there. I might wait for 10 or 15 guys to come with me. So you have that element there, too.
Let me ask you this. If you were going to arrest Mike Tyson, let's say you had to arrest Mike Tyson.
Yep.
Here's the way I think it would go. Excuse me, Mr. Tyson, I've got a warrant for your arrest. Please, could you come? Is it okay, Mike? Does that sound about
That's pretty accurate.
Or would you I just put little burgers, little hamburgers out and make a little trail into the car. No, you know something? This reminds me very much. And again, he's a celebrity, and this is why they do it to him. And I've seen him do it I used to cover the Patriots on the sidelines of the Patriots games. People would yell at the TV guys. You know, they yell the name, and then they'd yell an insult. And it's just people messing with somebody. They don't do that to you. They don't do it to me. They
absolutely
will. Someday
not.
they will.
But I think in this, I think in this instance, there was probably enough people that mentioned to somebody who could have made a decision, whether it be an airline personnel or a cop. But hey, this guy was giving him a hard time. He was like threatening him and threw a water bottle at him. It was self-defense. So that could have been the reasoning. But the other 50% is, he's Mike Tyson. Right. Can I have your autograph, Mr. Tyson? Have a nice day.
I'm sure. That's the thing. And let's say this: if you're in a situation, let's say you're on a plane, and somebody comes up and they harass you because if they were going to harass you, they'd be being a jerk. This guy seemed like he was just a knucklehead. But yeah, he annoyed me. I think there were pictures of that as well.
Absolutely.
I think there was video of that. So I'm sure that a cop looks at that and says, well, Tyson probably wasn't in danger, but the guy deserved it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
some people just deserve to get their ass kicked, Dave, plain and simple, and cops know it. And in many instances, the cop will, clean the guy up, send him to the hospital, and say, I'm not pressing charges. The guy deserved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're not going to be able to prove much because once you get into the court of law, everyone's going to be dressed up. They're all going to be looking nice. And the lawyers are going to say, it was nothing. And, one lawyer will say, it was terrible. Da, 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 da. And why torture the guy? But
and that brings me to a story.
Okay.
Very similar to this.
Story?
I have a story.
I have a story similar to this.
What's that?
I have a friend who was on a white rafting trip, and she told me that there was a grizzly bear, and that one of the people from the grizzly bear, one of the person from the raft wouldn't get on the raft because they wanted to get a good picture of the grizzly bear.
Oh, wow.
They didn't get eaten. But the guide was so mad at this last woman who got on slowly, and they got away, but it could have endangered the woman.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure this is a story. There was a tourist, and he was in Africa, and he wanted to get a picture of his wife with the lion because the lion was just sitting under a tree.
Oh, it looked so docile, didn't it?
And as they lined it up, he wondered, move back. And the lion ate her.
Yeah, she's worth usually a lot more dead than alive, that life insurance policy,
well,
Dave.
I'm not sure if he was doing it for the life insurance policy or just because the lion's not doing anything. It's docile. It hasn't jumped up to grab him. They don't know. And it's sad. It's sad, but it's also so stupid.
Absolutely.
That it's funny. And I would say
there's a bumper sticker that I used to have on my police cruiser, and it said, "You can't fix stupid, so don't call 911."
You had that on your cruiser, did you?
No, a good friend of mine used to always say that all the time. You can't fix stupid.
No, you can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid.
We got a quick story because we have a Hollywood celeb.
I know. This
supposed
is
to be
amazing.
calling in, or we're calling him in about 5 minutes.
I cannot believe you. And we can't say his name, right?
Not at the moment. You might be able to figure it out.
All right.
But let me go back to Boston PD. This is a few years ago. A friend of mine works for the Boston PD, and I sent out a text message the other day that I was doing a podcast with elite people, Hollywood types and athletes. And I said, anyone got any stories? And he says, I got a great story. He went to a call at a nightclub in Boston a few years ago. There was a disturbance. I guess it involved a New England Patriot player, rather large player.
Which is a celebrity, yeah.
Celebrity. And I guess the story is that the player was in the nightclub and there was a girl, possibly an ex-girlfriend or an ex-lover, and she was passing around pictures of that player, and on that picture was, this man gave me VD. And, after a few minutes, he figured it out. He argued with the girl. He pushed her to the ground.
Yeah.
The bouncers came in and intervened. The cops show up, Boston police, and they escorted who out of the nightclub?
Oh, I know how this
Who'd
is
they
gonna
escort
go.
out?
Not the big celebrity who had committed the
Possible domestic assault and battery, assuming they were dating or had sex or something to that effect.
which would be consistent with him giving her VD.
Yeah,
if he
you
could
would
give her
think.
VD. Or you had the person who had violated his HIPAA rights
Yeah.
by
Putting out his medical information out there.
putting his medical information out there.
So you got a 50% chance of being right, Dave.
I'm sure it's given the nature of the podcast. I'm sure you're going to say that they ushered the woman out.
Yeah, they ushered the woman out, and the Patriots player was able to go sit back in his table with some other girls and his, wine and some beer and just having a grand old time.
You just hope that those girls hadn't seen the picture. But here's a good point. First of all, if somebody has sex with you, I know, hard to believe.
That's a risk, very risky right there.
They're not going to be saying, they're not going to be handing out pictures of you saying, this guy gave me VD.
No, probably not.
And here's the other, and let's do a couple things. First of all, let's assume that this was not a long-term relationship.
A one-night stand, Dave. You've had many of those in your career.
Let's assume it was a one-night stand. Being a celebrity, you've got an image to uphold. You'll find out as you become more famous. Anyway, so let's say this: it's probably not a medical certainty that he gave her the VD.
Yeah, if she's like a street tramp or just a very loosey-goosey girl, there could have been 5 or 6 other guys.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And we don't know it, but it could have happened, and it's just kind of a crappy thing to do. But again, you're right. If there's going to be, I have a buddy.
I don't mean to cut you off, Dave, but we got that call.
We got a call.
Yeah, I got a text, and they said, make your call now because you only got 5 minutes. So hopefully this person picks up.
This is exciting.
Hey, are you there? This is Dale Lawrence and Dave from Inside the Line.
Sorry, you're breaking up here.
Oh, can you hear me or not?
Are you talking into your phone?
Oh, I am. So does that sound a little better?
Yes, sounds excellent.
All right, so we got him, Dave. Do you think you know who it might be?
It sounded a little familiar. Are you a Hollywood actor?
I am a very famous Hollywood actor, I'd like to think.
Oh, all right. I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Well, let me ask you a question. I got a quick question. Let's get right to the chase. Back in 1981, there's a story that you were on a boat in which a lady fell off a boat and allegedly drowned. You got any information on that story?
Wow, I gotta say, you're not exactly narrowing it down. I'd say women fall off boats all the time. Gonna have to really narrow it down for me. I've been on a lot of boats and seen a lot of women drown. Not that I was ever implicit with that act. I just know things.
I see. Have you ever been? Do you ever feel that the elite in Hollywood have advantages when it comes to treatment by the police?
I disagree. I think we're all equal together. Sure, I'm better looking and I got more money than most people, but I'm just an average Joe like you.
So you've never done anything illegal? I know you're on boats. I know how those celebrities are. You've never had an incident where, like, you, I don't know, smuggled something for someone or something like that?
Well, you see, there was this one time where my friend, he had a gold watch, very, very expensive gold watch, and he didn't want it to get stolen. So I said, let me hold on to that. He said, where are you going to hold it where it can't get stolen? I said, the prison wallet. So I took this hunk of metal, big, nice, expensive gold watch, and I put it the only place I knew would be safe, my ass.
That wouldn't be safe in Dave's ass. I know that.
Oh, that's gross. That's gross. You're gonna have to edit that one out. That's gross. How would you think that of me?
Well, I'm getting a text from his from his publicist saying you got about 30 seconds left. So I do have one more question. It's a question that I originally started with. Do you know anything about a young lady back in 1981, Catalina Island off the coast of California, that either fell off a boat, slipped off a boat, or was pushed off a boat?
You see, I don't know whether this young lady was pushed or simply slipped off the boat, but I can tell you one thing for sure, that I banged her.
Okay. And I think we're getting cut off right now. Hey, thanks a bunch. We appreciate your time. And I don't think anything you said was incriminating today, so you should be all set for the next 20 years if you get that much left to live.
Thank you, Hollywood celebrity. And that's, I don't know. Do you think that was him?
Well, I've never met him. It sounded like him. My friend, my connection says that's who they were going to get. But it really, I was really upset that my phone screwed up. So I'm not sure how this is going to sound. I'm not sure. I was thrown off.
You were thrown off. You weren't your usual, what's the word? Calm, collected, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move back to stories. Now, I know that...
Well, we just finished the New England Patriots story. Let me refresh myself. Oh, this one's a great one. This one is a great one, and it's from a good friend of mine. Do you know Manchester, Massachusetts?
Manchester by the Sea?
Manchester by the Sea.
Not Manchester, Mass. It's Manchester by the Sea.
All right, well, there is a location in Manchester where homosexual men will meet for a secret rendezvous.
Is that the Manchester Essex Woods?
Yeah, something like that. How would you know that, Dave?
I know my stuff. I know my stuff.
Yeah, so a friend of mine was a law enforcement officer over there back in the day, and he told me a funny story. He says he got a call for in the woods, Manchester Essex Woods. He shows up. There was two men, probably 100, 200 yards off the path in the woods, and the person described them as performing oral sex on each other. So the cop shows up, he has a siren on because he's a good cop. Yep. And as he gets up to the trail, he sees one man running in one direction. Then he sees another man walking calmly toward him. And he looked at the man and he shook his head. And in the back of his mind, he goes, there's no way. This is who I think it is. I'm not going to tell you the name, Dave, and I'm going to play an audio clip, see if you can figure it out.
We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. Shazam! Surprise, surprise, surprise!
Any guesses there, Dave?
Well, golly, I don't know who it could be. Sounds to me like a typical Marine.
Typical Marine. No one that I met from the Marine Corps sounded like that, but it was Jim Neighbors. Gomer Pyle was the man that approached the officer, and the officer said to him, excuse me, sir, but we got a call that there might be something not necessarily illegal because they were two consenting adults, but it was illegal because it was in public view. And he didn't even mention to him, hey, are you Jim Neighbors? Are you Gomer Pyle? He goes, I was just too starstruck. And I said, sir, you might want to just get in your car and take off before things get any worse for you.
Here's an excellent question. So you're saying he looked a lot like that. He didn't take the guy's ID.
No, he didn't, but...
I know, but he looked a lot like that.
Well, a good cop knows one thing. Jim Neighbors was in town that weekend playing at the North Shore Music Theater.
Yeah.
So it was him.
All right. And let me ask you this question, because you've probably had experience with this. You come across a couple, same-sex couple. The normal reaction to that is send them on their way, right?
That's the normal reaction if there's a witness who wants to be a victim, meaning the witness observed them having sex, whether it be a teenager or an older person walking their dog at the beach, then there could be a crime there. We talked about it last week, open and gross lewdness. But if everyone is there as a willing participant and they're all at the correct age, meaning they're at least 16, if you were a 30-year-old man with a 16-year-old girl, you wouldn't be going home too quickly on that one. Right. You have to kind of figure out what was going on with that.
That's with a complainant or not a complainant, right? Because the minor's not allowed to decide.
The age of consent is 16, but you wouldn't allow a 16-year-old girl in a car with a 30-year-old guy having sex. You would probably call the girl's parents and try to figure out what the hell's going on.
Even if 16 is the age of consent?
It's the age of consent.
Okay.
But you have to kind of look out for the welfare of the young child because you don't really know what's going on there. Was there drugs and alcohol involved? But yeah, the basic scenario of letting Gomer Pyle go is relatively, at least in the community that I work or the communities that surround the community that I work, kind of usually the protocol. As long as there's no victim and no one's harmed, go about your business. Hopefully he was able to finish up. If not, he probably was all jittery the whole night. Singing at the music theater.
You know, the funny thing about that is when you mention it, I'm thinking to myself, so unfortunate that they couldn't just go to a room.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. And maybe you can elaborate on this, Dave.
Yeah.
What is the excitement of having sex in the nature, in the woods? What is it? I don't get that.
Not for me. I'm always afraid I'm going to have a bear come up behind me.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Maybe if we can get ourselves a male who has sex in the woods, we can have him. We can interview him on the podcast and ask him what is the enticement.
As long as you don't have him calling the cell phone, I think we're fine. What about? Here's the other thing. If it wasn't Jim Neighbors, celebrity, and let's go to the real obvious one here. When he back in the days when he was coming to North Shore Music Theater was probably at least 15 years ago.
Probably somewhere in there,
if not longer.
There. Yeah, it was longer.
Attitudes were a lot different back then. You might have had. I mean, you still might have it. Somebody's closeted. They can't bring them home to their family because they're closeted.
Yep.
They live in the life of a heterosexual man. They're trapped in this lie that they're living. It's unfortunate. And maybe they feel like, why they would go off to the woods and not somewhere else, I don't know. Here's the other thing. The Manchester Essex woods, that time of night, they're dark.
Yeah.
They're dark.
You get lost in the woods, baby.
How do you get caught?
But it was Jim Neighbors, Dave. I know you alluded to the fact maybe it wasn't. It was 100% Jim Neighbors.
Did they have an absolute ID? Did they look at his license?
It was him. I know you're sticking up for him, but it was him.
All right, fine.
Now, while we're on the music theater, we have another one. This was a few.
How about this? Bob Crane used to play there all the time, and he had quite a history.
Oh, Bob Crane, he was brutally murdered, wasn't he?
Yeah. Because he was into a lot of again, consenting adult stuff.
Yep.
But he was into a lot of it. But anyway, he came through a few times. But
he's all right. He survived.
Yeah,
at least for a while.
Again, different situation, but I think that's my guess is if Jim Neighbors was in the woods, that's probably much more the lure because I don't see how anybody could be lured by, I don't know. Have you ever had sex in the woods?
Not that I'm going to admit to, Dave.
Yeah. Well,
no, I never have.
Tell you, yeah, bugs.
Oh yeah, poison ivy.
Bad for your back. Poison ivy. I know a girl, and she was a girl back then years ago. She went out. She had sex with her boyfriend in the woods. She got wicked bad. They both did wicked bad.
That's incredibly insane, Dave.
They were in high school. So you got another one?
Well, we have another music theater one, and I'm just going to throw this clip out there. It's a young girl from the 90s. She was a very popular singer. She was at the music theater, and she had a stalker, and the police department was assigned her private detail for around 2 weeks.
All right.
I'm going to put her song out there because I know this was on your top 10 list on your iPod
I'm sure,
a few years ago.
I'm sure I didn't have an iPod a few years ago. Well, maybe I did.
Any guesses, Dave?
No.
You don't know who that is?
No, I thought the person that we had was, all right, I thought it was somebody else.
That's Debbie Gibson.
Okay, Debbie Gibson.
Debbie Gibson was at the music theater, I don't know, in early 2000 with another girl, Tiffany maybe.
Okay.
She was another mall singer back in the day.
Mall singer.
I think they started singing at the mall. So Debbie Gibson had a stalker. But unfortunately for her, the real stalker that she had, there was a police officer who was infatuated with her. And whenever he was working, we would play her that song right there over the loudspeaker in the station and would also play it from dispatch and it would go out to all the cruises. And he was her personal bodyguard for 12 of the 14 times she needed one. So little did she know, Her stalker was within 5 feet of her for 2 weeks.
And so 2 weeks after the detail, did she call you from whatever city she was playing and say, could you take my protection back?
No, it wasn't me, Dave. It wasn't me.
It wasn't you?
No, it wasn't me.
All right. Maybe the department get a call that said, this officer that you assigned to protect me, he came to Kansas City with us.
Yeah, he keeps calling me, sending me naked dick pics of himself, all sorts of stuff.
I like the Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, Aaron Hernandez, yeah. He's deceased, so there's no liability there.
Yep.
So Aaron Hernandez, as you know, committed some brutal murders a few years back, and ultimately he committed suicide in prison. But before he went to trial, he was in numerous houses of correction, and my contacts in a few houses of correction told me that when Aaron was in the house of correction, he was having sex with a few other of the male prisoners, and the guards weren't necessarily told in writing, but it was just kind of keep it hush hush. We don't want any more notoriety or any press coming to the prison because people are finding out that Aaron Hernandez, big stud Aaron Hernandez, murderer, is also homosexual.
That's now I've heard this before. You're confirming it through your secondhand knowledge.
Very trusted information,
Okay.
Dave.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this:
Prison sex is usually, it's very difficult to keep inmates, male or female, from having sex with each other.
Love will find a way.
Love will find a way.
Love will find a way.
But obviously, there's like the rape type of prison sex, and people,
Well, I think there's also a difference between somebody who is in prison, from what I understand, they're in prison and they engage in homosexual relations in prison, but they're not necessarily gay.
Well, the term, the prison term is gay for the stay. As long as I'm in prison, I guess if I have to have sex with a guy, I might as well.
Okay.
Because I'm not getting it until I get out, and if I'm a lifer, I'm never getting out.
Okay, so it's sort of
it's just a lifestyle
pleasure
change.
of opportunity, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, Dave.
Now,
You'd probably do pretty good in prison, Dave.
well, thank you.
Yeah, you'd probably do pretty good.
Thank you. Well, what do you mean by
You
that?
have a lot of feminine features I think a lot of the big, burly male inmates might be attracted to.
So my point is, one of the things about Aaron Hernandez is fairly fascinating for this because again, he kind of he was deviant. He was so deviant, he was fascinating. He had a great job. He was a thug.
Yep.
He was seemed to have all the trappings of success. He was a murderer. And depending on the account, he was a cold-blooded murderer.
Absolutely. Almost like a serial killer, if you want to put it that way.
It certainly seems to be your definition of was a sociopath.
Absolutely.
Sociopath is your definition. And then you heard about this stuff with the, was he a homosexual? Was he not a homosexual?
But he's still getting privilege, and people know that he's guilty of those murders.
Yeah.
And that he's still getting that privilege. So a lot of times the privilege.
How do you get privilege in prison?
Well, that privilege right there. If you want to have sex, the cops, the jail guards look the other way.
But why are they looking the other way?
Because it's a lot easier to look the other way, Dave.
I mean, why don't they?
I looked the other way for 32 years, Dave. I just drive right down the street, close my eyes, and go through car accidents, people getting assaulted, banks being robbed. I didn't see it. I saw nothing.
Help!
Just look the other way. Curiosity killed the cat, Dave. That's a great saying that was told to me when I was a young police officer from a great guy. He said to me, hey, kid, curiosity killed the cat. You want to have a long career? Don't be too curious out there, all right?
All right. You had here's a case. You did pull over somebody. What were they, driving erratically?
They were driving erratically. Then when I pulled up to them, they were on the side of the road, kind of a main street, in front of a Chinese restaurant. And I pulled over, and there was a kid. He looked familiar to me, but I really wasn't a big basketball fan, so I didn't really know basketball players, nor do I do today. But he was stoned out of his mind. And he had a huge bag of weed sitting right next to him. And I asked him, I go, what's your name? And he told me his name, but he told me his nickname. And then I'm like, oh, I know this kid, professional basketball player. So
you didn't look at him and say, Kareem, what? What? Kareem, what?
So based on that, and I said to him right to his face, I said, brother, I don't want to ruin your career, man. So what, you're stoned. You got some weed in the car. I'm just going to dump it in the sewer. We'll call your sister. And she came right down, picked him up, took the car, and took him home. Because I wasn't going to have that on my conscience, that the kid gets arrested for weed, and he could lose his contract, and a lot of bad things can happen.
Right.
And I didn't want to be that person to do that.
And this is really the difference between the celebrity and the normal person. Maybe the person who's not famous, maybe you let him off. Maybe you just, as a lot of cops would do, they just take the weed and they let you go because you're a local kid and you don't have a lot in your record, or you don't have anything in your record, and they figure, I'm not going to ruin his life. Because this is really...
that a lot of times that's the norm, especially with, you're talking about young kids, you don't want to ruin their life, or just someone doing something where there's really no victim. No one's been harmed here. And you have that, cops have discretion.
Yep.
You can use your police discretion. And if you so choose to use it in that situation, you can.
And if I'm going to argue the other side of it, I'm going to say, well, the kid didn't have to pay a price. And if he gets if he winds up driving impaired and kills somebody, then that'll be
that's on me, Dave.
Yeah,
but he didn't. He had a good college career prior to that. He had a good professional career, I believe, in Europe. For the most part, it was in Europe and places like that. Never heard from him since. Never saw that he's been arrested. Never heard anything bad about him.
Good citizen from what I know.
The way I look at it is, I did him a favor. I put his life back on track.
Right.
He's probably saying, who's that cop? I'd like to meet that cop someday.
He probably is.
Well, here I am, Dale Lawrence, baby. Give me a call.
Probably every day he says, that cop. And they say, what city? And he says, there have been so many cops in so many cities that have let me go. Anyway, you had a lot of positive interactions?
Yeah, we talked about definitely when you deal with people of privilege. And like I said, Hollywood elites, athletes.
Paul Nardizzi.
Even politicians from your small town. A lot of them are very arrogant. They think they're beyond approach, and they expect to be treated differently. However, that really hasn't been the case with me. For the most part, the people that I've met have all been nice. Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider, they did a lot of movies in the North Shore of Massachusetts over the last 5 or 6 years. Excellent people. George Carlin performed at the Music Theater. Wayne Brady from, I think, what's that line at the improv show?
Whose line is it anyway?
Whose line is it anyway?
And then he went on to his own show.
Hardy Rawls, who was the old Maytag man.
Oh, Hardy
one of the
Rawls.
nicest guys you ever meet.
Rawls.
Absolutely, one of the nicest guys. Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
Because they filmed a portion of Manchester by the Sea, literally 50 feet out the front door of the Seaside studio.
Oh.
And I was watching it for like 4 or 5 hours one day with my son.
Yeah.
Back in whatever it was, 7 or 8, 9 years ago. Excellent people. And this will get to the last person, a guy named Eric LaSalle. If you've ever watched Coming to America, the Soul Glow guy.
Yeah.
Coming to America 1. And I met him years and years ago over in Germany.
Wasn't he also in ER?
He was in ER, and he's a big author, and I think he's the director of Chicago PD and Chicago Fire.
Okay.
One of those shows. I met him when I was in the Marine Corps. Him and a girl came to the embassy in Stuttgart back in 86 or 87. They had lost their passports, so we had to deal with them for 4 or 5 hours. The nicest, most humble person you've ever met in your life.
It's always a nice thing when you deal with
my experience is that a lot of them have been very, very nice. And the few that look for the privilege and the few that really do messed up things kind of make them all look bad.
Right. And the other part of it is that, if you have a bad day, if you cut somebody off in traffic or give them the finger.
If you beat the shit out of someone on an airplane, everyone thinks you're a maniac.
Yeah, like that. Like that. It's just one little thing.
One little punch to the head.
One bad day. One bad day. And anyway, all right. So we're all done. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it, Dave.
Beautiful. I think we probably had the greatest show we've ever done. Anyway, this has been Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. You can send us an email at realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. You can check us out at insidetheline.org. And please share us with your friends, share us on your social media, because we're trying to build our audience so that we can get paid, so that we can continue to live in the lavish lifestyle that we're used to and continue to pay off these big Hollywood guests that come on the show. I'm Dave Rattigan with Dale Lawrence. See you next time.